Hi there. In this last tutorial of the year, we are going to recreate one of the fantastic animations that we can see in the crypto reels of this Instagram account. Here's an example of what we are going to learn.
Now they could keep all that money using XRP. Bank A in the US converts dollars to XRP, sends it to Bank B in Europe in seconds, and Bank B converts it to euros. Simple and efficient.
If you like my tutorials and want to support the channel, in addition to your likes, you can also do so from my Patreon page for just $2 a month. And if you want to move on to the motion graphics area, this is where things get serious. You'll have access to all the project files, editable templates for photos, logos, as well as significant discounts on my editing course. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Okay, so let's get started. First, I'm going to import these Illustrator files and this PNG, which are the ones I'm going to use in the animation of this reel. I'm going to put them in a folder that's going to be called Illustrator, for example. Again, File, Import. And now I'm going to bring the audios, which is the song that plays in the background, and the reel's audio. This one is going to be called Audios. And again, File, Import. And now I'm going to bring the sound effects, which I'm also going to put in a folder, Sound Effects. Now we're going to put these three in another general folder, which is going to be called Assets. And so we have everything well organized from the beginning. I'm going to create another one for the compositions, and with it selected, I'm going to create the first one that's going to be called Main, 1080 by 1920 at 30 frames and with 15 seconds to spare. And in this composition, I can now put these Illustrator files. I'm going to start with the house, S key, and I'm going to set the scale to 80%. And I have to convert this layer to 3D. I'm also going to put an effect called tritone on it. And I'm going to put the midtones in a green color, more or less around there. Okay, by the way, if you like documentary-style editing, my course is now available. But it's not just a course in which I show you how to animate a sequence in After Effects and that's it. But I show you the entire procedure that I followed to create this animation. From the initial idea to the final render, going through each and every phase of the creative process. I'll leave the link in the description in case you want to take a look. Now with right-click, I'm going to create a solid. And this one is going to be called Base. We leave everything as it is. And this one is going to be used to put it here under the house, so that it doesn't look like it's floating. I'm going to leave it more or less around there. Okay, again, right-click, New, Solid. And this one is going to be called Background. I'm going to make it 5,000 by 5,000 pixels. The color is black, and I'm also going to convert it to 3D. And this solid of the background, I'm going to move it underneath, and activating two views, we're going to see better what's happening. What I want is to send it to the back, so that when I animate the camera, the parallax effect is seen here. I'm also going to add an effect called Grid. Here it seems that the background has disappeared, but we have to go here to blending mode and set it to normal. From corner point, I'm going to change to width slider. And for width, I'm going to set it to 200, for example. Okay, now I'm going to leave the width of the grid at 1 point. There it is. Here in Z, I'm going to set it to 1,000. And I'm going to lower the opacity, for example, to 50%. Now, with a right click, I'm going to create a camera. This is going to be 50 millimeters and with one node. And I'm going to paint these 3 layers with the same color. Right-click again, New Null Object. We'll also convert it to 3D and parent the camera to it. And before continuing with the animation, we're going to add an effect here to the solid of this base, called Gradient Ramp. Here, we're going to invert the colors, and from linear, we're going to change it to radial. And now, the white color, well, we're going to put some green tones on it, more or less around there. And we're going to move these handles. We're going to move this one down here up. Around there. Okay, I think that's where it might work. Well, now, with the start of the timeline here, we press the P key on the null and mark a keyframe, and we're going to go forward to the 5th second. And now, here in X, look at what I was telling you about the parallax effect with the house in the background, which, because of this grid, is much better appreciated. Here in X, I'm going to put a value of 1500, and we'll soften these 2 keyframes with F9. Right-click Keyframe Velocity, and we're going to put an influence of 90% on the handles. We have to have a curve like this, which starts very slowly. And right here at 215, which is in the middle, is where the animation goes the fastest. Okay. So at that point, we are going to select these 3 layers. And we can press Ctrl plus Shift or D key to cut them. Or go to Edit, Split Layer. This is the shortcut. Okay, we delete these 3 parts. Well, I'm going to stretch the background for the entire duration of the composition. That's it. And again, I go to the Assets folder, and from the map of the United States, I'm going to create a new composition that I'm going to put inside its folder. And now to this map file. With right-click, I'm going to put a layer style called Gradient Overlay. And we're going to go in here to edit it. We click more or less here in the center, and this new color that has been generated for us, so that it stays right in the center, we're going to put 50 here. And the color, since we're with the green tones, we're going to put more or less this color. In the white color, we will leave it in a fairly dark green, around there. And the black color in white, there it is. We return again to the main composition, and we will place ourselves here in the last keyframe. And now, we will bring the map composition. We also have to convert it to 3D, and with Ctrl plus Home, we center it there in view. What happens is we are going to scale it a little, for example, to 70%. Here at this point, which is when the animation is going fastest, we are going to put the map that starts right there to create this transition. We come back here to the last keyframe, and now we are going to bring this illustration of the bank. We put it here, we convert it to 3D. With Ctrl plus Home, we center it there in view, and we are going to set the scale to 60%. What happens is, I am going to put the map on top, And I am also going to move it a little bit down, more or less around there. And now the tritone effect of this Illustrator file of the house. With Control C, I copy it and paste it to this illustration of the bank. Control plus V. What happens is, we also have to cut it at this part. Edit, split layer, and we delete it. Come on, let's continue. We're back here at the last keyframe. And we're going to go to the Compositions folder. We're going to create another one that's going to be called Icon. This one is going to be 500 by 500. We'll leave everything as it is, and now here inside, with the ellipse tool, we're going to double-click and create a circle the same size as the composition. For now, we're going to deactivate the fill, and we're going to come here to add, and we're going to add a gradient fill. And we're going to edit it a little. Here in Endpoint, we're going to put, for example, 250. And in Edit Gradient, well, before editing the color, we're going to change it from linear to radial. Now, we come here to Gradient, and we're going to put this white color, almost black, around there. The black color, well, we're going to continue with the green tones, more or less around there. Now we're going to move this point to the right. We'll leave it there, so that it's dark in the center, and with these green colors around the perimeter. Okay, fine. And now here inside, I'm going to write the dollar symbol. S key, I'm going to scale it quite a bit because it's very small over there. With Control plus Alt and the Home key, we center the anchor point. And with Control plus Home, we center it there in View and the white color. Well, I'm going back to the main composition, and now I'm going to bring this file called Arrows. I'm going to put it above the map. These three that go in the same scene, I'm going to paint them the same color. And I'm going to set this one to start at the same time as the others. Now I'm going to convert it to 3D, and with Control plus Home, we're going to center it there in View again. I'm going to make it smaller. I'm going to set a value of 35%. And I'm going to move it up, more or less. Well, that's where it might be worth it. A little less. Over there. And this tritone effect, which we have here in the house file, we copy it and paste it to the arrows. There it is. This composition that we have created, the icon, we are going to put it up here as well, and we give it the same color as this group. We also convert it to 3D, and we center it there in View. What happens is that I am going to scale it quite a bit, more or less around there. And now, the center of these arrows, which is here, well, to put this composition right there in the center, I am going to hold down the Control key, and it will be pasted there automatically. I am going to make it a little bit smaller, more or less around there. P key, and I'm going to move it 100 pixels to the right. If it was at 1500, I'm going to put it at 1600. With Control plus D, I duplicate it, P key, and if the initial value is 1500, now I'm going to subtract 100 pixels so that it stays right on the other side. Okay, perfect. We're going to parent these two compositions to the arrows file so that when it rotates, it follows its movement. This icon, or this one, it doesn't matter to me, either of the two. We have to replace it with another. We come here to the Compositions panel, and we duplicate this one. And now, with the Alt key pressed, we're going to replace this composition and enter. The S of the dollar, I'm going to delete it. And here I'm going to deactivate the gradient, and I'm going to activate the fill again. I'm going to put a fairly dark color, more or less around there. And without moving from this composition, we're going to bring the XRP logo. And we're also going to put the fill effect on it. White, over there. We go back to the main composition again, there it is. On one side, we have the XRP logo, and on the other, the dollar symbol. Now, before the animation gets to this point, here at second 5, we're going to go to second 4, and we're going to mark a keyframe in the Z rotation of the arrows, and from 4, we go to 6. And here we're going to tell it to turn halfway to the left. We'll put minus 180 degrees, and we'll soften these two keyframes, right-click, keyframe velocity, and we'll put the influence at 65%. Well, what happens here is one thing. Although they rotate at the same time as the arrows, it seems that they are fixed there. And what I want is for them to always be vertical. So I am going to select these two compositions, key R and the Z rotation of each one. We are going to relate it to the Z rotation of the arrows over there. And the rotation of this one is the same. We select Z rotation and relate it. Now we select these two compositions, and with the E key twice, we are going to display the expression. Here at the beginning, we are going to put it in negative. We put the minus sign there, and it is the same. Here at the beginning, we put the expression in negative. And now look. They rotate at the same time as the arrows, but they always remain in a vertical position, which is exactly what I want. These two compositions have to start at this point as well. We come back to the null, to this last keyframe, and from the second 5, we go to 10. And here we are going to continue animating the x-axis. We are going to set a value of 3000, and this keyframe, we come to the graphics editor, we double-click here, and instead of 90, we are going to set it to 65. And this one as well, double-click, and instead of 90, we set the influence to 65. And well, here I am, seeing that at the end of the animation, the background layer no longer covers the whole space, so I am going to move it on the x-axis, more or less around there. And here, in this last keyframe, I am going to select all these layers that are from the first scene, I duplicate them, I change their color, and we have to center them here in view, these of the icon, as they are related to the arrows. So we are going to display the position of this layer. And if this keyframe has a value of 3000 pixels, then here we are also going to set 3000 so that it stays right there in the center. There it is. The same for the map, P key, and here we're going to set it to 3000. The same for the gradient bank. We set it to 3000 on the x-axis, and there we have the second scene set up. Let's preview everything. Let's see how it looks. Okay, well, this looks great. What happens is that the animation on these arrows here isn't visible because it does so at the same time as these. So look, if we move these keyframes, these icons here are going to move too. Do you see? And that's because they're all related to the same layer arrows with the expression. So we're going to do the following. We're going to deploy the Z rotation of these two layers, and we're going to relate them to this copy that we've made. One over there and the other over there. So now if I move these keyframes, it only affects these icons that I have here. It doesn't affect these ones anymore. We're going to put ourselves in the last keyframe here, and we're going to put the arrow animation icons here. I want these to last a little less. So around here at 820, I'm going to put this keyframe there. Come on, we're doing well. This expression that we've generated, we have to put it in negative as well. Because if not, look at how the icons rotate. Which is not exactly what we want. So here at the beginning, we put the minus sign to put the expression in negative. The same as this one. And there it looks perfect. They always stay vertical. And these ones here are the same. We're going to put ourselves here now, in this keyframe in the middle. And what we're going to do is create that path that goes from one illustration to the other at the same time that the camera moves. But first, we're going to make some adjustments to this keyframe here. If we look when the animation gets here, it stays completely stopped. Because its value at this point is 0. This means that it moves 0 pixels per second. So we're going to do the following. We double-click here, lock the continuous box, and if we move this up, notice, now it's going to go slowly, but at no point will the camera stop. Okay, but not too much. Here in pixels per second, I'm going to put 40, which means that it's going to move 40 pixels per second. And now it's going very slowly, but at no point will the camera stop. Come on, let's continue. We're going to put ourselves here in this keyframe, and without having any layer selected, we're going to go for the pen tool. I'm going to make a click more or less here, and another one here. And I'm going to give the shape to the stroke, more or less like this. I'm going to remove the fill and I'm going to put a white stroke. And 7 pixels are enough. Now this layer, which by the way I'm going to rename, I also have to convert it to 3D. And without moving from here, Control plus Home, and it's positioned back where it was. What we have to do now is connect these two illustrations through this path. But since we can't see it here, we're going to activate the Draft 3D option, which, as I've said in other tutorials, allows us to see the entire 3D space, and not just what we have here on the work table, and we're going to do it perfectly. To see it better, I'm going to activate the background. And here in this option, we can increase or decrease the opacity. I'm going to leave it more or less there. Now I'm going to click on this point, and I'm going to come to this part. I'm going to click here again, and more or less another one here. Now with the handles, we're going to try to give a little bit of dynamism to this path. Okay, I think that's where it might work. Now we select the path, we unfold it here in the shape options. And here we select the path, we come to Window, and we're going to open the Create Nulls from Paths script. Of these three options, I'm going to choose the one called Trace Path. If you want to know more about how this script works, I have a few tutorials here on the channel, in the old tutorials, in which I use this script, and there I explain it in more detail. Well, of these three, I'm going to choose Trace Path, and what it has done is create a null that moves infinitely along the path. Look, it starts there, and when it reaches the end, it starts again. But what I want is for it to go from this point to this one and end here. So, with the U key, we are going to display the progress keyframes. And with Alt pressed, we are going to click on the clock, and we are going to deactivate the expression. So, here it starts in this keyframe. And when it reaches this one, it ends and stays there. But for this movement of the null to coincide with that of the camera, we have to put these keyframes right above this movement. The first one here, and the second one above this one. Now, with F9, we smooth them, and we are going to give the same influence to the handles, which is 65%. And now, if we want, we can deactivate the Draft 3D option. Now the animation is not visible, because we have to continue making some adjustments. Here we are going to put the Trim Paths effect on the path. We display and select the End option for this percentage, which is what animates this path. And with the Pick Whip, we are going to relate it to the progress percentage. This means that the trim path animation is going to follow the movement of this null at all times. Look, if I move this keyframe, the path follows the position of the null at all times. Okay, I am going to leave it where it was, which was right on top of it. And the good thing about this is that now I can relate any object or any layer to this null. Now I am going to select the Star tool, and I'm going to create a shape like this, holding down the Shift key. And here in the Polystar options, I'm going to change from star to polygon. I'm going to remove the stroke, and I'm going to make the fill white. I'm also going to change the name Stroke Tip. And now we're going to center the anchor point. I'm going to make this triangle smaller. And now with Control pressed, we're going to position it right here, where this null has the anchor point. Control key pressed, and there it sticks perfectly. Now, so that this triangle follows the position of the progress, with the pick whip, we relate it to the null. And there we see that it follows it at all times. But well, we have to fix the rotation. R key, and here we're going to put a value of 90 degrees so that the orientation is correct. I'm going to make it a little bit narrower and smaller, more or less around there. Let's do a preview of everything. Let's see how it looks. Come on, this looks great. But we still have to make some adjustments. We are going to deploy the keyframes of this null, and more or less around this point. When the camera is already moving towards the next scene, we are going to select the tip of the path, S key, and mark a keyframe on the scale, and we are going to move it a little to the right. And without moving the head from this part, here we are going to set the scale to 0. And we are going to smooth out these two keyframes. Okay, now it doesn't start so abruptly, but little by little, there the arrow appears and makes its path. More or less around this point, we mark another keyframe there. And before it ends, which is here, at this point, we are going to set the scale to 0 again, and we smooth out all of these. Perfect. And we also have to make a small animation to the path. We select it, and here in the path, the Start option. We mark a keyframe there, and right here at the end, we are going to mark another one. Well, here at the end, what we are going to do is set this percentage to 100%, so that this stroke also disappears. We soften them, and we are going to do a preview in case we have to adjust the timing. Well, I think it looks perfect there. I am going to paint these 3 layers the same color, for example, yellow. And here in this last keyframe, we are going to duplicate the null to make one last move. We unfold the keyframes, delete them all, and mark a new one. And we parent the previous null to the new one. We are going to place ourselves here at second 9 around there. And we are going to place this keyframe right there. Now from 9, we go to 13, and we're going to animate the Z-axis. We are going to move everything to the bottom. We put a value of -1,500 here. We smooth the keyframes, right-click, and we put the influence at 90%. We should have a curve like this. Now here at second 11, which is right where the highest peak of the animation is, where it goes the fastest, with a right click, we are going to create a solid. This is going to be called, for example, transition. We make it the size of the composition and the color white. Okay, and we are going to cut it right at this part, around there. Now in this last keyframe with the text tool, here everyone can write whatever they want. Just like in the example, I'm going to put simple and efficient. The color black. And I'm going to make it quite a bit bigger. We center the anchor point and convert this text to 3D. Now, with Control plus Home, we put it right there in front of the camera viewfinder. And we're also going to cut it right at this point. Control plus Shift and the D key, and we cut the layer there. And we delete this part. And let's see how this transition looks. Perfect. I'm going to do a preview again to verify that everything is working correctly. Okay, so this looks spectacular. Now, from the main composition, we're going to create another one that's going to be called Main Effects. And we're going to put some sounds and some more effects here. I'm going to come here to the sound effects folder, and I'm going to put this one called Whoosh. I'm going to start with these. Using the L key twice, we can spread out the audio waves, and more or less here at 215, which is where we cut this scene, we're going to put the highest peak of this whoosh right there. Okay, perfect. Let's continue. With Control plus D, I'm going to duplicate it. And here in this part, when we change from this scene to the next, I'm going to put another whoosh. What happens is that I want this one to last a little bit longer. We can do it in several ways. We can modify the time here in stretch, or also with a right click. Time, stretch. But the easiest way is to press the Alt key and move from here to the right. Here we can see how much we're increasing. I'm going to leave it at about 200 around there. Okay, that's perfect. I like it there. I'm going to duplicate this sound again. Normally, sound design is done in Premiere or in a similar program. Since we can put all the sounds in the same line. But this animation lasts 10 or 15 seconds. I can do it here without any problem. But imagine that it lasts 2 minutes, and we have to put 100 sound effects. Well, here it works the same as in Photoshop, where one layer is on top of the other, so in the end we would have a mess here that you can't see. So as I said, it is normally done in Premiere. Press E twice, and I'm going to put myself here at second 11, which is right where the scene change was. And the highest peak of the whoosh, I'm going to put it there. What happens is that I'm also going to lower the levels a little bit. I'm going to put it at -5, and the same for this one. Here in audio levels, I'm going to put it at -5. Okay, there it is. Another sound effect that I'm going to put is this one called gears, which I'm going to put here when the arrows turn around, which started here at second 4, so around there, more or less. Let's see. Well, I think it looks pretty good there. What happens is I'm also going to lower the levels a little. I'm going to put them at -3. And here we also have some rotating arrows. Here at this point, I'm going to duplicate this sound and I'm going to put it here. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to the song, which is called Future Glider by Brian Bolger. You can download it for free from the YouTube library. I'm going to put the levels at -15. Let's see there. Okay, I like it. And finally, I'm going to put the real audio.
Now they could keep all that money using XRP. Bank A in the US converts dollars to XRP, sends it to Bank B in Europe in seconds, and Bank B converts it to euros. Simple and efficient.
Okay, so this is looking great. Finally, we can put some adjustment layer with some effect. For example, this one is going to be called Glow. And here in presets, I'm going to put this plugin called Deep Glow, which is a paid plugin, and it actually works pretty well. But if you don't have it, you can also put the glow that comes by default in After Effects. There, I'm going to lower the exposure quite a bit. For example, 0.10. And I'm going to put the radius at 800 or so. Again, right-click, New, Adjustment Layer, and I'm going to put some curves on this one to give it a bit of contrast. Okay, so that's what I like. These two adjustment layers, here at second 11, which is when we change scenes, I'm going to select them and I'm going to cut them there, and without moving the head from this part, right-click, New, Solid. And this one is going to be called Flicker, the black color. And what we're going to do now is cut the solid there. And in this part here, we are going to expand the opacity with the T key. And we are going to write an expression called wiggle. And inside the parenthesis, we are going to put 10.5. What is happening now is that it is moving between values between 90 and 100. What I want is for it to move between 1 and 10, for the opacity of the solid to be very low, but for the flicker to be noticeable. So here, next to the parenthesis, I am going to put -90. And now it is going to move over those values, between 0 and 10. A little more, a little less. And look how cool the flicker looks. And well, with this we would have finished the tutorial and working perfectly. If you got stuck in any step or there is something you do not understand, write me in the comments and we will solve it. And if you like the tutorial, leave me a good like so I know. See you in the next video.